Welcome back to Center Stage, everybody. We're joined by the star of the new film, Love is Strange, actor John Lithgow. The 1970s, you appear in a dozen Broadway shows, several other off-Broadway shows. You're really doing well. How did you not go off the rails and live just an incredibly wild life?
Well, if you're a married man with a child, you don't lead a wild life. But the marriage fell apart, and I did have a completely sort of unmoored year or two, very painful time. It was the first serious crisis in my life. A wise man once said that he had experienced a terrible failure at age 30, which was far too late. Well, that's when life sort of fell apart, and then reconstituted a few years later.
Was there anything you did to specifically pull out of it?
Well, I met my second wife. You know, that was at age 35, and both of us were a few years past our first marriage. It was just kismet. Toward the end of the 70s, I was offered two theater jobs at once. One was the American premiere of Harold Pinter's masterpiece, Betrayal. And the other was a friend's new play for Joe Papp down at the Public Theater. My agent said, let's be adventurous, let's do the downtown play. So I turned down Betrayal. Did this new play, which was a complete flop. I found out on opening night that my agent who'd advised me to do it also represented the director. That's why I thought, and Betrayal was a huge hit. It ran for a year, got all these awards, and such a mistake. I almost slit my wrists, but it meant that I was available. I got a nice little job that rehearsed for 3 weeks in Los Angeles. And during those 3 weeks, I met Mary Yeager, who's been my wife of 33 years. Wow. You know, it's like, and that's the moral of the story. You absolutely never know. If I'd made the right choice, the second half of my life would have been completely different. Yeah. It's from that I've devised my motto in life. When you're faced with hard choices, don't worry. Whatever choice you make is sure to be the wrong one.
Now, during this time, John, you worked with great actresses, Lynn Redgrave, Meryl Streep, Judith Ivey, Liv Ullmann. Could you see Meryl Streep's success when you first met her?
Oh, absolutely. She came into New York like a shooting star. I was in her first play in New York, Trelawney of the Wells, and then in 2 or 3 more productions that year. And then she got her first couple of movie jobs, and man, she was gone. Right. I remember recommending her to my agent at the time. And he thought, well, no, I think not. And, you know, I reminded him of that many, many times.
Good for you.
Over the years.
Now, you continued to make films during the time. In 1982, you played the role of Roberta Muldoon, transsexual ex-football player in The World According to GARP. You were nominated for an Academy Award. When you saw that script, did you say, oh yeah, I've got to do this?
Oh yes. I had read the book a few years ago with no notion that it would be a movie, but when I was put up for that role, I was desperate to get it, and I thought, I'll be perfect for that. And George Roy Hill, the great director, I was the first person he saw, and George said no. It would never work because I was so much taller than Robin Williams, rest his soul, who played GARP, and it would look ridiculous. And so they spent about 8 months looking for the right person for this. And they finally came back to me in despair. And George, the minute he saw the screen test, he said, that's it.
So he wasted 8 months of his life.
Totally wasted.
What was it like working with Robin Williams?
It was beautiful. I mean, this has been, you can imagine, I mean, I feel that loss terribly, just like millions and millions of other people. But I do have that beautiful experience with him.
At that time, did you sense a sadness or a depression?
Yes, I did.
You did.
Yeah, Robin was he was brilliant, dazzling, delightful man. But you did feel that in performing, in in making people laugh, he was escaping from himself. And one-on-one with him, I did feel this melancholy tug. I mean, this was many years ago, and it was during a bad period of cocaine addiction that he's talked about ever since, but he put it into comedy acts.
Sad.
Very, very sad.
Well, you were on a roll film-wise at that point, John. In a few years, you play The Twilight Zone, the movie, Terms of Endearment, Footloose, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. Is there a John Lithgow type part? I mean, that you felt, I'm best suited for this type of part? Because they're so diverse.
Well, that's kind of the fun of it for me. I mean, we talked earlier about my roots in Shakespeare. I think that's where it comes from. Every night we would do a different show that was completely different. But that was the thrill of it for me, was being different. That's the magic of it.
Now, in Twilight Zone, the movie, you played a paranoid passenger. It's such a famous part. You look at that, and then you wonder, do people look at you strangely on planes?
I wish I had a nickel for every joke that a flight attendant has made.
Now, we have a little thing on the show that we call Did You Ever? I'm going to ask you a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Did you ever do these things? You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Did you ever steal anything?
Yes.
What'd you steal?
I think I stole a little package of root beer barrels when I was about 7 years old.
Did you get caught?
I've never admitted it until now. No.
Statute of limitations is over. No
Although
worries.
the horrible thing is I didn't particularly like them. When I finally tasted them, it's like, ugh, who wants this?
Did you ever get an opportunity to go to the original Woodstock?
Yes, you've read my memoir.
Why didn't you go?
Oh, God. I'd been in England for 2 years. The American counterculture had grown up without me. I was going to summer stock theaters to check out designers and actors for my dad. And as I drove along, I kept hearing, you know, this thing about some music festival. I kept seeing these Volkswagen minibuses with flowers painted on them driving by. All these people, you know, The Who and Joan Baez and all these. Sounds like great. I have an empty station wagon. I could sleep in the back. I got money. I could buy food. Spend 3 days. I got nothing planned. My schedule's my own. Summer of peace and love. Sounds like a great thing. I go, nah. That's my history with Woodstock. Such a jerk.
It's great. You're still not bitter about it.
No, I'm bitter. I'm bitter.
Did you ever eat an entire pizza by yourself?
Yes, in a word, yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did you ever ruin a Marcel Marceau performance?
He's got inside information. Yes.
How so?
Well, back in those days at Princeton, Marcel Marceau came through once a year, the great French mime, and I was hired as his curtain puller. His stage manager explained to me in broken English that I was to bounce the curtain for Marceau. He wanted everything just right. Curtain down, curtain up. It's called bouncing the curtain down, up. And it looks all very nice, but it's extremely difficult to do because there were these two hemp ropes. You would pull on one rope to bring the curtain down and then grab the other, and it would pull you up the wall, and then your weight, you would counterweight it and pull it down in order to pull it up. Then you'd grab the other one, pull up, down, and then it would come down. Grab the other one, and up and down. And in tech rehearsal, it was very hard to master this, but I mastered it. But in performance, with everybody cheering like crazy, I brought the curtain down, brought it up, down, up, you know. But he wanted like 5 curtain calls. On about the 4th one, I grabbed one, pulled me up, and I was so shaken and exhausted. I looked at the 2 ropes, and I wasn't sure which one. And I just started grabbing one, and I pulled and pulled and pulled, and it started getting easier and easier. I thought, what's the problem here? And I looked out on the stage, and there was this like 8-foot mound of curtain. It had all come down in front of Marcel Marceau, and he was standing there like this, looking at me. You know, like a mask of anger.
Now, I have to ask this. He's a mime. Did he yell at you?
He was mercifully silent. Actually, I've just noticed I must have developed my mime skills.
Yeah,
those
very good. All right, did you ever want to punch another actor or director in the mouth?
Yes.
You're not going to tell us who?
No, I wouldn't dream of it.
Did you ever almost have a movie sex scene with Raquel Welch?
Yes.
How'd that not happen?
Well, I wasn't cast. I must
How
not,
badly did you want that part?
I guess I didn't particularly impress her.
Oh, that's sad.
Not that sad.
Did you ever have a famous, notable babysitter?
Yeah, I've had 2 great babysitters. One, the Oscar-winning costume designer, Ann Roth, who is designing my costumes for A Delicate Balance this fall on Broadway. The other great babysitter I had was Coretta Scott King.
Wow. How'd that come about?
She was a student at Antioch when I was a little boy, me and my older sister and brother.
And finally, did you ever get offered the role of Frasier Crane on Cheers?
Yes, I did. Yeah. Now that's not fair. I really don't like to tell people that because, out of respect for Kelsey, if they'd hired me, it never would have been a smash hit series. But yeah, they created Frasier with me in mind.
Kelsey did a good job.
He did very well by that.
Yeah, he did okay.
Yeah.
Nice run.
Yeah.
Well, television is in John's future, and we'll talk about that transition when we return on CenterStage.